Hello everyone, I'm Ed McCauley, President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Calgary. We have an incredible idea exchange ahead of us this afternoon, focused on the research and partnerships that are changing the future of cancer. There's such exciting work to share here, and I'm delighted that you could join us. I also hope that over the course of this program, you'll see how community is at the heart of everything we do at the University of Calgary. We're able to be innovative and creative precisely because of the relationships that connect our university family to one another and to the places we call home. I'd like to take this opportunity now to acknowledge that we are here on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. This includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The City of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Acknowledging these relationships involves acknowledging the history that connects us. This includes reflecting on the devastating news of the 215 children buried at the Kamloops Residential School. It includes engaging with programs like National Indigenous History Month, which takes place throughout June. And it includes an ongoing commitment every day at our university to walking the path of reconciliation, guided by our Indigenous strategy called the Tapato. This same spirit of working together with integrity and hope for the future applies to our research at the University of Calgary. And when we look at the issue of cancer, I think this commitment to connecting knowledge and people is a major strength for our university. We know that there's an enormous opportunity to make an impact in this space. 1 out of every 2 Canadians is expected to develop cancer in their lifetime. Sadly, 1 out of every 4 is expected to die from this disease. We also know that research and knowledge translation can make all the difference. Back in the 1940s, only 25% of Canadians diagnosed with cancer were expected to survive for 5 years or longer. By the 90s, that survival rate had increased to 55%, and more recently, it has increased further still to a survival rate of over 63%. We have the ability to turn this situation around, and researchers across our entire university are responding to this call to action. They are working closely with extraordinary partners, such as Alberta Health Services and other organizations. And they're directing these efforts to match their strengths to the opportunities in cancer research and care. These include pillars focused on decreasing cancer in the population, improving cancer care, enhancing patient experience, attracting and retaining the best and brightest, and strengthening the ways we translate all of this knowledge towards improved cancer outcomes. We've been able to achieve some incredible breakthroughs together through this approach. UCalgary scholars have harnessed the power of immunotherapy, using the body's own immune system to attack cancer cells and successfully treat certain forms of leukemia and lymphoma. Our researchers have developed a blood test to detect breast cancer, creating a less invasive and more cost-effective way to diagnose this very common type of cancer. They've advanced the field of psychosocial oncology, expanding our understanding of how all aspects of a patient's experience can affect their well-being, from the social and psychological to the emotional and spiritual. And the list goes on and on. Every one of these successes is a joint effort, fueled by the support of our partners and our community. Through the Energize campaign, for example, supporters like you helped us raise more than $1.41 billion towards research and collaborations that are changing lives for the better. Seeing this shared progress is a wonderful inspiration for what we can achieve in the future as we prepare for the launch of the Calgary Cancer Centre. The centre is slated to open in 2023, and it will build on the strengths of collaboration, of knowledge directed with purpose to improve the outcomes for all Calgarians and Albertans facing cancer. This is such an exciting initiative for our community, and I'm thrilled that we have several experts here with me today to talk further about how we're meeting the cancer challenge together. This afternoon, we'll hear from Dr. Jennifer Chan, the director of the Arnie Charbonneau Cancer Institute and associate professor in the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine. Dr. Chan conducts clinical duties in neuropathology at the Foothills Medical Centre and the Alberta Children's Hospital. She also directs the Clark Smith Brain Tumor and Pediatric Tumor Bank, and she has a research lab in the Arnie Charbonneau Cancer Institute. Through her research, Dr. Chan focuses on the growth factors that determine neural development and brain cancers, as well as the molecular characteristics of brain tumors. Dr. Doug Mahoney, assistant professor in the Department of Microbiology, Immunology, and Infectious Diseases, and the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. Dr. Mahoney leads advanced research in immunotherapy. In his lab, he's developing novel techniques, such as T-cell-based immunotherapy, to treat pediatric tumors and other cancers. Dr. Mahoney's research encompasses the study of both cancer and its environment, including secondary lymphoid organs and the gut microbiome. Dr. Darren Brenner, assistant professor in the Department of Oncology and Community Health Sciences. Dr. Brenner is a molecular cancer epidemiologist. Through his research, he explores how lifestyle genetics and molecular pathways all intersect in the development of specific cancers. He's currently leading studies to examine how biomarkers could be used to determine cancer risk, as well as the impact of lifestyle and environment on the risk of several cancers. And Dr. Don Morris, head of the Department of Oncology in the Cummings School of Medicine and clinical department head of oncology for the Calgary zone with Alberta Health Services. Dr. Morris is also the facility medical director of the Tom Baker Cancer Centre. He serves as an associate senior medical director of the Cancer Control Alberta for AHS, and he is the medical lead of the new Calgary Cancer Centre. Dr. Morris held the role of Chief Division of Medical Oncology in the Department of Oncology from 2013 to 2020, along with Head Section of Medical Oncology. He has been a senior staff scientist in the translational laboratories at the Tom Baker Cancer Centre since 2001. And in 2011, Dr. Morris took on a role as its director, which he held until 2019. We'll begin with Dr. Chan, and it's my pleasure to turn things over to her now. Welcome, Dr. Chan.
Hi, thanks for that wonderful introduction. I'm Jennifer Chan, and I'm going to talk about our vision for cancer research. Research is a really powerful tool. It's what's brought us to those survival rates that Ed had just talked to you about. But it's not just that research is powerful. This is actually the most exciting time in cancer research. And that's because in the last 20 years, there's been explosions in technology in biology, engineering, computer science, and other fields that have set us on our current trajectory that is exponential growth. Right now, we have the ability to see the underpinnings of cancer, the molecular underpinnings of cancer, in ways that were never possible before. We can see every gene, examine every gene in the genome. We can observe cells and their behaviors in extraordinary detail. Now, one of the things that we've learned is that cancer is not one disease. It's 100 different diseases, thousands of diseases, each driven by different combinations of genetic alterations, and each of which occurs in a patient that brings their own factors that can influence their cancer's biology. The other thing that we've learned is that we're not just observers of the biology, we're now manipulators of the biology. We can manipulate the cells, the genes, the proteins. And our goal is to use those tools of molecular biology, of genetic engineering, to innovate new treatments and to select the right treatments for the right patients at the right time. That's the goal of precision oncology. It sounds simple, right? But actually, it's simpler. It sounds simpler than it really is. So moving forward, it's not going to take just innovation, but really connection and collaboration to realize that goal. In any given patient's cancer journey, that patient touches the healthcare system in many ways. Each of these touch points, the clinical teams, the laboratory diagnostics, the medical imaging, the treatment and follow-up, and the supportive care, each of these touch points is something that generates data and is an opportunity for research to improve how we control cancer. Now, our vision in Calgary is to create an environment where each of these touch points is interwoven with research. And furthermore, to bring that advanced technology, those people, that wet lab research to bear on the problem of cancer. Now, if you take all of those things I just talked about, integrating them is going to be, it's not easy, right? But that's going to be the key. What is going to lead to more progress and faster progress in improving patient outcomes is integrating those streams of information. And integrating them in an efficient way is the prerequisite for the development of a learning health system. But the landscape of data, it's not always easy to navigate. Sometimes data are hidden, other times you know it's there, but the access may be difficult. Even when you can access it, like in accessing our electronic medical record, it may not be in a form that's easily ingested and ready for machine learning approaches. So what we're doing is we're identifying the gaps, and we're in the process of building the platforms and establishing the systems for sample collection, common data elements, and data sharing. Because actually what's critical is not having the data, but it's actually connecting the dots. This kind of connection and collaboration, this is what's going to set the stage for transformative collaboration. Now, we're already in the process of doing some of this. Some of the work that you'll hear about tonight is along these lines. Our strongest teams of researchers are reaching across disciplines to address some of the hardest challenges in cancer. We aim in the future, though, to be even more connected, even more networked, and even more nimble. Now, harnessing this power of connection and collaboration is important for all of us. It's going to result in better strategies for cancer prevention, more accurate and less invasive cancer diagnostics, more effective and less toxic therapies, and better support tools for providing the right care. For our patients and our clinicians, the benefits are obvious. Access to novel therapies, improved outcomes, but there are other benefits as well. As a health system and a society, this type of engine and these types of collaborations are important for improved outcomes, greater healthcare value, and the creation of that learning health system. For our community as well, this system, this sort of engine of collaboration and connection, it's a source for economic growth and diversification, IP generation and commercialization. So I'm going to end with that thought that I had started with, which is this is the most exciting time in cancer research. We have tools that we never had before. So join us. I hope you stay with us for the next phase of cancer research. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Doug Mahoney and turn the stage over to him. Welcome, Doug.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this exciting idea exchange. My name is Dr. Douglas Mahoney, and I'm an immunotherapy researcher at the Charbonneau Cancer Institute at the University of Calgary. One of the most important advances in cancer research over the past several decades is the discovery that our immune system has the capacity to detect and destroy cancer cells. Much like our immune system can determine that a pathogen like SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, is dangerous and should be destroyed, so too can it distinguish cancer cells from non-cancer cells in the human body. In this image, an immune cell shown in red is seen scanning a tumor cell shown in blue for subtle differences that might distinguish it from healthy cells. Should those differences be detected, that immune cell will attack the cancer cell, attempting to rid the patient of their disease. The problem is that cancer can find ways to hide from our immune system. You may not have noticed the frog on the tree in this image. I've pseudo-colored it now in green so you can see it better. Much like this frog, which has adapted to its environment by camouflaging itself to hide from a snake, cancer cells can similarly acquire traits to hide from its predator, a patient's immune system. This is one of the ways that cancer can learn to thrive inside of a person. Let me explain how this can happen. In this illustration, the purple cell represents a cancer cell, while the blue cell represents an immune cell called a T cell. Normally, a T cell recognizes a cancer cell as unhealthy by scanning its surface for molecular features that are abnormal. To do this, it uses what's called a T cell receptor, shown here in blue, which is essentially a barcode reader that identifies a unique molecular barcode on the surface of a cancer cell. Now imagine what would happen if that cancer cell figured out how to get rid of its barcode. It would become invisible to the T cell, which is what occurs in many types of cancers. Knowing this, scientists have developed innovative strategies to train a patient's T cell to detect other distinguishing features of their cancer. One way this is achieved is through genetic engineering, where its patient's T cell is modified in the laboratory with a synthetic barcode reader, one that instructs it to recognize a different distinguishing feature of that cancer. Once that feature is detected, the T cell will attempt to kill the cancer. In the clinic, the therapy looks like this. A potentially eligible patient has a sample of her tumor profiled for molecular barcodes. Once identified, the patient's blood is harvested and their immune cells isolated and engineered with a paired synthetic barcode reader. Those designer cells are in turn grown to high numbers and transplanted back into the patient. If the therapy works as intended, those designer cells will identify the predetermined molecular barcode on the cancer cell and attack. Now, this may sound a bit like science fiction, but after 25 years of research and development, first-generation designer cell therapies are now being used to treat certain types of blood cancers, and they're saving lives. This is Emily Whitehead, the first child ever treated with a type of designer cell therapy called CD19 CAR T cell therapy in a clinical trial at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Emily had a blood cancer that had become resistant to all other types of treatment. She was close to dying. 8 years after being treated with an experimental CD19 CAR T therapy, Emily is alive and well, leading a normal life and serving as a spokesperson for this revolutionary new therapy. And as of early 2021, CD19 CAR T cell therapy is now available to our patients here in Calgary. Unfortunately, for these two iconic Canadians, Terry Fox and Gord Downey, who died of bone and brain cancer respectively, designer cell therapy would not have saved their lives. There are several reasons for this, including that we don't understand the molecular barcodes that best distinguish their cancers from healthy tissue, and that these cancers are innately more hostile to designer cells than blood cancers are. Innovative new research is needed to create safe and effective designer cell therapies for these types of cancers. This is the challenge of our generation, as immunotherapy scientists. In early 2021, we launched a new research initiative at the University of Calgary to help meet this challenge. Comprising a diverse team of clinicians and scientists, ACTION, or the Alberta Cellular Therapy and Immuno-Oncology Initiative, brings fresh ideas and advanced technologies to bear on the important problems facing designer cell therapy of bone, brain, and other high-fatality cancers. Building on years of strategic investment in people and infrastructure at the University of Calgary, ACTION represents a unique research program in Canada that seeks to identify better molecular barcodes for high-fatality cancers, developed advanced technologies to create fitter, more resilient designer cells, better understand how these therapies work and why they fail to inform the rational design of next-generation therapies, and in the end, bring new medicines to our cancer patients in Calgary and beyond. By working toward a shared vision together, fundamental scientists, clinicians, funders, and other stakeholders, we've created an opportunity to shape the future of cancer treatment right here in Calgary. Thank you. Next up, you'll hear from my colleague, Dr. Darren Brenner. It's my pleasure to turn things over to him.
Thank you, Doug. So a cancer diagnosis is a time of great uncertainty. Patients are uncertain what their future looks like. Will they be able to keep working? What treatments will they receive? And how will this affect their family? Clinicians also face a great deal of uncertainty. Seldom do patients ever fall into discrete categories like in a clinical trial, and every patient is unique with their own experience. So when we boil down what our research aims to do, we aim to reduce uncertainty in cancer control with data. So we're working through a concerted effort to use data and analytics to reduce uncertainty. We operate through a research framework from data to analysis to evidence and impact. We collect and synthesize multiple types of data on large-scale populations. We apply the most up-to-date and advanced analytic methods, and we do so in collaboration with the engaged clinicians and clinical teams here in Calgary. We generate evidence that's nationally relevant, but we're less interested in just generating evidence and writing papers. We're more focused on impact that can benefit patients, families, and clinicians that are working to improve cancer outcomes through the development and application of decision support tools and other knowledge products. So we apply this research framework across the cancer control spectrum, from all the way from investigating the earliest of exposures through to clinical presentation of disease and clinical management. So this includes prevention research, where we're working to understand and model cancer risk with the end goal of reducing cancer in the population. We're evaluating new biological markers as potential tests for early detection of cancer, and we're working to improve cancer pathways for screening. We also work with our clinical colleagues to understand and improve outcomes among cancer patients. While we have active research underway in all of these areas, I'll just highlight one particular example in this outcomes analysis space. So as you previously heard from Dr. Mahoney, immuno-oncology and immunotherapy has revolutionized the way that many advanced cancers are managed clinically, and it's quickly becoming a pillar of cancer care. So as an example, several years ago, advanced stage lung cancers previously had very poor survival outcomes, with approximately 25% of patients surviving 2 years after diagnosis. Now with immunotherapy, nearly double the number of patients will survive 2 years past their diagnosis, and many will experience remarkable long-term durable survival responses. However, there's a great deal of complexity and nuance shown to these data here. Even among those patients treated with immunotherapy, some patients will experience remarkable and prolonged response, while others will not fare much better than those treated with standard chemotherapy. And this is just one particular patient characteristic that we're showing to stratify patient response to treatment. But in reality, it's many combinations of characteristics, many combinations of variables that predict response, because every patient is unique. So as Dr. Chan alluded to, we and others are working to connect the dots with big data and precision analytics in oncology. So this shows a network of all of the data that would be potentially available at the time of diagnosis of an advanced kidney cancer. So we can use machine learning to understand all of these interactions and relationships between these patient characteristics, tumor characteristics, biological markers, and outcomes. In doing so, we can use all of the available data to make informed predictions and reduce uncertainty. We can then use these data to help patients and help clinicians. So this is an example of a decision support tool based on this network of data. The clinician will be able to enter some known characteristics about the patient, their diagnosis, and then several variables that can change over the course of their treatment could be included. So based on these data learned in the network, the tool would then provide the clinician with estimates of the best treatment for that particular patient. The tool would also then communicate the potential side effects associated with the different treatments to the patient. So this data-driven approach would thereby reduce uncertainty and facilitate shared decision-making between the patient and the clinician using patient data. So through work like this, we and others are working towards the vision of a learning cancer system, a future where when a patient walks in the door of the new cancer center, data on patient characteristics and biological samples are routinely collected. Working with their clinicians, these data help to inform the decision-making and then are fed back into the system to improve and to learn going forward. In this way, it's patients helping future patients with their data. A learning health system will continue to reduce uncertainty and improve patient outcomes in the future. So thank you very much. It's now my time to turn over the stage to Dr. Morris, and he'll share a little bit more about the new Calgary Cancer Centre and the exciting future prospects. Welcome, Don.
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's a pleasure to actually talk a little bit about the new Cancer Centre, and appreciate the remarks from Dr. McCauley, and I'll try to highlight actually some of the items that Dr. Chan, Mahoney, and Brenner have just touched on. And this is really just a snapshot of the amount of research and activity profile that are currently happening that the new building will in fact accelerate and in fact have retention and recruitment opportunities associated with it. So this is the stylus projection with regard to the new Cancer Centre. And of course, if those people that are on the Foothills campus see this building has actually arisen from a parkade, a ground level parking lot back in 2017, and in fact is now on budget, on time for an opening in the second quarter of 2023. So it really has moved very quickly, and this is, although bricks and mortar, it really provides the magnet, if you will, to attract good research, to integrate both clinical care with research, as well as all of the prevention strategies, treatment strategies, diagnostic strategies, even end-of-life care and survivorship. And so it's really a beacon, if you will, for hope within cancer, not only just in Calgary, but within the province and within the nation and internationally as well. So, you know, what is the vision for the new Cancer Centre? Well, it is to deliver world-leading comprehensive cancer care that integrates patient and family with education, prevention, screening, and cancer research. And I think this will, in fact, be the beacon of how to deliver, how to research cancer in the future worldwide. And the question that always comes up is truly, why Calgary, and what will it be known for, and how is it going to be comprehensive? Well, I think at the end of the day, one of the metrics, if you will, would be that I think Calgary will be thought of as a cancer idea, if you will, and a cancer icon for, in fact, international cancer researchers and patients alike. And they'll think, when they think of Canada and cancer, they'll think of Calgary. So I think we can certainly achieve this, and this building is certainly getting us away. So here's a quick little diagram with regard to the timelines. 2017, the groundbreaking happened for this new Cancer Centre at the Trans-Canada and 29th Avenue intersection, if you will. And we're here in 2021, and we've already got the build up. It's halfway completed inside. And now we're going through the laborious process with regard to working groups and sort of the operational readiness for this with that 2023 patient opening, if you will. Another real picture, this was back from last month, and you can certainly see over that 3 and a bit years just how it's come to fruition. I'm going to step back for a minute and go back to Dr. McCauley's sort of thematic area. These are areas that we've really concentrated in terms of themes that this building will help, but we already actually do some of this, but it'll certainly be augmented by the new build. Areas with regard to decreasing cancer in the population. So these are primary prevention and secondary prevention strategies, screening, early detection, et cetera. Improving cancer treatment. You know, we have actually some of the cutting edge and innovative treatments that will be housed in this new building with regard to radiation therapy, with regard to some systemic therapy. We heard from Doug about immunotherapy, which is front and center, but some of the next iterations, next generations of treatment strategies. And the patient experience, really important. You know, we've had over 114 patient and family advisors throughout the build of this to make sure that their thoughts and ideas have been incorporated into the building. And the green circle around this sort of pie chart, if you will, is really outcomes. And I think all of us that are involved in the cancer activity profile truly thinks that data is going to be our modus operandi, if you will. Alberta is uniquely centered with regard to having one healthcare system and now access with regard to machine learning and artificial intelligence around that area. One of the things you heard about was the learning healthcare system, and I think this is really going to be a mover with regard to how do we actually measure things in real time and afford our patients the best treatment. You can see there's lots of pieces of the puzzle to go through, but absolutely this is going to drive our research success. And so at the end of the talk, the partnerships with regard to University and Alberta Health Services are key. The data, as I mentioned, is going to be key to have that in terms of artificial intelligence, health technology assessment, commercialization opportunities, and economic diversification, but more so the people. So thank you, and I hope you're as excited about this building as we are, certainly to help. Now, I'd like to make a sort of a segue into the next part of the activity here. So it's really with community support in terms of our integrated approach to research, designed to decrease cancer in the population, improve treatment and the patient experience, as well as cancer outcomes as mentioned. We're seeking to establish Alberta as an international leader in innovation, to give those in our city and province quicker access to world-class cancer treatment and care. And we can only really accomplish these things as working together as a village and with you as our partners. So the next segment is really a video, and this is from one of our patients, relative, who gives a very candid, emotional review of some of what has gone through his mind. And so I hopefully you'll enjoy this as much as I. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Kate Morey and I'm 11 years old. When I was 4, my papa was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Back then, I didn't understand what cancer meant. As the years went on and I got older, I started to understand a little more about cancer. But the more I learned, the more I got scared. My relationship with my papa got stronger. We spent so much time doing things together, even though it was getting harder for him. But no matter how tired he was, he always made time for us. We like to look at sports cars and watch hockey together. Even though we cheer for different teams, we still have a good time together. For my 8th birthday, I decided to raise money for my papa and other lung cancer patients. With my Nana's help, we found the right cancer research lab to donate to at the University of Calgary. And with my friend's help, we were able to raise more than $400. I hope the researchers can use this money to find a cure for cancer for people just like my papa.
And I said, Doc, is there any chance that my stage 4 lung cancer could just disappear? He looked at me, he said, no. He said, other than a miracle. Well, miracles do happen. It hit me really hard. It was like, am I going to be around within a year to see or enjoy my family, to do things with them that I was doing? And I soon got over the shock and said, this is reality. I'm going to do something about it. I want to live. And that was the driving force for me. I want to live because I had a lot to live for. I do wake up every morning and I say to myself, I say, thank you, God, for another day that I've been given. And I love it. And I open up my drapes and look out at those mountains and say, here I am. Look out, world. I'm coming again. You know. So every day I get up, I'm just very grateful for each day that comes along. For a little guy at 9 years old to raise over $400 just at a birthday party, and to do it for me, he just blew me away when that happened. I can only say that he's a very special boy. I just sit and look at him and I think, how lucky can a grandfather be?
I'm so grateful that my papa is still here with us and that we get to go for walks and talk about stuff and check out new movies and check on our animals. And at night, my papa will read us books. But my all-time favorite thing to do with him is look at sports cars together while watching the Oilers beat the Flames. The end.
The support of our donors and community is creating such an important impact. And I want to reiterate our gratitude and appreciation for the incredible champions behind the University of Calgary. It's my pleasure now to open the virtual floor for questions and discussion. For our audience, you can join the conversation by submitting your questions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. Please note that we are not able to address individual circumstances or cases in this discussion. So I'll just start off with a few questions of my own as the chat box fills up. Don, how will the new center be a driver for our city and for our province?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. There's lots of ways to answer that. First of all, the impact with regard to just the morale of our healthcare workers, our researchers, just seeing this building arise is really understated. There's a sense of energy, and this is despite the COVID pandemic, some of the healthcare restrictions currently, and dealing with cancer, whether you're a researcher, healthcare provider, or even a family member of somebody with cancer, has really been inspirational, and we feel that. That's palpable. But I think to really answer the question, what does this cancer center actually provide the research and the clinical communities? It provides an opportunity to really weave research into every fabric of clinical care. That's really where the benefit of this is coming. Instead of working on different sides of the Foothills campus, we're going to be integrated now, and it gives an opportunity for us to be visionary and to really be strategic with regard to some of the thematic areas that we can make a difference to our cancer patient population.
Great, thanks, Don. This question is actually for Jen, and can you go into further detail on how research in the lab translates into improved patient care?
Yeah, thanks for that question. There are so many ways that the research in the lab crosses across, and I would say back and forth. Part of what I do in your introduction, you mentioned I run a tumor bank, and tissue samples from cancer patients is one example of how truly things go back and forth between the clinic and the lab. In fact, in one example, I'll just say, Doug Mahoney and I are working on a project, and we have cell lines that are growing from patients. We're doing work in the lab, and actually we're finding information that can actually be fed back into the clinic. So it's manyfold, but I'll even say that that's one kind of research, the kind of research that uses patient samples. That's the most obvious kind of connection between the lab and the clinic, is that you might have a finding that informs, that's a new finding for a patient. But truly, even the most basic of basic science does cross into the clinic. I'm a brain tumor researcher. One of the areas that I work on is this, it's a tumor called oligodendroglioma. And before we found, through sequencing of patient samples, that, we identified a new gene by sequencing patient samples, but actually decades before that, this gene was found in fruit flies to control growth. This is where you really can't tell what the direct connections are until you actually do the work. So, it's not just the proximate stuff, it's even basic science really does cross into the clinic. Just as an example.
Great, thanks, Jen. You mentioned a collaboration with Doug, and there is a question for Doug here. How important is it that we have alternative treatment options to traditional therapies? Doug?
Well, I think it depends on the alternative treatment. I think, my lab and my life has really been about developing new treatments that are alternative in the sense that they're not chemotherapy or radiation or surgery. They are an alternative to those traditional therapies, but they are traditional in the sense that they are built on the premise of scientific inquiry. They're hypothesis-driven. They use scientific information derived from the human experience with cancer to ultimately create an innovation in a what will become hopefully a traditional therapy. So it's a new way of trying to kill cancer cells, ultimately immunotherapy. And so I think it's really important that we are always, as scientists, stepping outside of the box to be creative about how we're thinking about addressing these very difficult problems, but that it's rooted in foundational science, fundamental principles, and really strong hypothesis-driven scientific inquiry.
Thank you. I think this question could be fielded by many people on the stage, so I'll just throw out the questions. And there's a couple of questions that are combined together here, and feel free to jump in, whoever would like to. The first question is, which characteristics do you feel qualify an individual for immunotherapy? And secondly, will it become a standard of care for cancer or be limited to only certain scenarios? So I'll turn it over to the floor. Who would like to start?
Probably falls a little bit into my bailiwick. So, immunotherapy has really changed. It's now become, as Doug was saying, sort of surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and immunotherapy. It's become one of our main fourth pillars. And the selection of patients for that, I think, is an ongoing activity. So we do know that certain populations of cancer patients within certain disease sites do incredibly well. In fact, melanoma with advanced stage disease, which was previously felt to be incurable, now we have 8-10-year follow-up survival with patients that were diagnosed with extensive disease that have no evidence of disease. And so there's a population that really I would use the word home run for. But there's other melanoma patients that don't do as well. So our real goal here is to really figure out what is the predictor, or what are the predictors that truly would say that, because those people that don't do well with the current immunotherapy maybe need something in addition or something beside, and that's what we need to start to figure out. But that has been actually replicated across many different tumor sites. And so it works well for some groups and not. And we're in fact much smarter than we were even 2 years ago with regard to what are the predictors of a good outcome for patients with this therapy. Right.
Anybody like to add more to that?
Yeah, I'll just add, I think this is the power of that integration between the lab sciences and the clinic, because we won't be able to sort out what are the predictors of responders, non-responders, unless we do those biological correlates. And again, doing that, weaving the research into every aspect of patient care and having patient samples and data, this is how we're going to solve those problems. So I'm really hopeful for the future. And maybe it won't be that everybody is going to benefit, but then we'll know, who is and who isn't. And for those who won't, then we'll try something else.
I might just add as well, I think the new cancer center will be a real bastion for clinical trials. And I'm sure a few years ago, there was only a few cancer sites where immunotherapy was being evaluated in clinical trials, and we see them more and more, additional cancer sites, additional subtypes, additional types of patient groups are being put on clinical trials to evaluate potential immunotherapy. So to sort of corroborate with the earlier two comments, that it definitely is going to spread into more and more cancer sites to evaluate the potential efficacy of those treatments.
Yeah, the immunotherapy holds great promise and has already demonstrated. But I've got a question which goes in a little bit different direction, and that is, how do bench and clinical research work together with psychosocial research?
Again, I guess I could take a stab at that. You know, the psychosocial research used to be, 10 or 15 years ago, was considered sort of soft science. It no longer is. So where does the research and the clinic sort of meet in the psychosocial? Well, there is huge mind-body, mind-cancer sort of interactions. There's huge integrative oncology issues, so complementary therapies that help with psychosocial. There's huge stresses that we never really understood before, both from family members and patient point of view, with positive outcomes if you can channel the right directions. And so for psychosocial, the whole concept of survivorship and then sequelae from some of the treatment that patients have gone through, that's a whole nother area within cancer medicine that we're just starting to look at now. And so this is a huge area of opportunity, I think, to really improve our patients' care.
Any other comments, panelists?
Might just add that there are a few research programs underway at the university where it's clear that there's some mind-body connection that's happening within these cancer patients, and those research programs are taking it to the next step, and they're actually trying to evaluate the biological mechanisms that underpin this sort of psychosocial beneficial nature when we think about just that mind-body connection in terms of cancer care. So definitely going actually on the bench with those particular types of analyses.
There are a number of questions in the chat about the relationship between Tom Baker and the new Calgary Cancer Centre, so they'll be coming up. But one question that's come across here, which is really quite intriguing. Do you suspect AI and data will replace the role of the physician in diagnosis and treatment? Who wants to take that?
One of the physicians.
Well, I'm close to retirement, so I'm not as concerned. I don't think so. The purist in me would say that we will be able to perform, patient care and research in just a whole different specter than we currently do because of machine learning, neural networks, AI kind of things, and it's going to be driven by data. Are we going to cure cancer? That was sort of all the buzzword 15 years ago in any of our careers? Likely not. But at the end of the day, are we going to make significant headway because of big data and analysis of that? Absolutely. So I do think we're probably still going to be all gainfully employed, but at the end of the day, I think we'll be actually performing much, much better than we do even now.
I would follow up on that is, I think that data is really powerful, AI is really powerful, machine learning is really powerful, but even if you take this outside of medicine, sometimes there are limitations of the data itself, like how representative is the data, how good is the data that you're making the conclusion on, and I think that's where a lot of the human interaction, intervention and judgment comes in, is that there's some guidance to how you aim those big guns of data science. So I think it will make us more efficient. It'll make us more accurate, but for at least quite a while, I think that there's still a job for me too.
She's good. So questions around the role, for example, of the germ-free facility in supporting cancer research and outcomes. We have these amazing tools at the University of Calgary. How do you see them playing a significant role in our investigations?
So the germ-free facility at University of Calgary is world-class, and it's filled with world-class scientists, and we are incredibly fortunate at the University of Calgary to have this facility and these folks. And it's interesting, one of the questions earlier about trying to predict, for example, who might respond or who might not respond to an immunotherapy or any cancer therapy. There's a really interesting new line of research interrogating the role that the population dynamics of microbes in your gut or in your lung or on your skin actually play in the ability of a cancer therapy to do its job, particularly a cancer therapy that interacts with the immune system, because your immune system is largely trained by that interaction with microbes throughout your lifetime, especially microbes in your body. So we have a facility now at the University of Calgary, the germ-free facility, that enables us to really dig deep in the mechanisms that underpin the relationships between those microbes and outcomes to therapy. And this is really where, again, the clinical teams and the basic science teams can work together. So for example, if a clinical study identifies a particular bug in the gut of a cohort of patients that makes them more likely to respond, we as basic scientists are very interested in understanding why that is. And with the facility like the germ-free facility, we can do what are called notobiotic experiments, which means that we can recapitulate and study the interaction specifically between that one bug or a small family of bugs and the immune response that is generated by a cancer therapy. And this is really quite unique to Calgary. There are a few other places in Canada that can do it, but none as good as Calgary. So this is just one of the, I guess, many facilities at the University of Calgary that facilitate this type of basic understanding of clinical observations for cancer and cancer therapy.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
Follow up, just quick couple of comments. So the clinical, sort of correlate of what Doug has just said is really important. So we noticed that perhaps certain types of antibiotics pre-immunotherapy make a difference. Right? That's kind of interesting. We noticed that people that were on CBD oil may actually make a difference in terms of how they respond to immune strategies. And so this whole thing about the microbiome, or your, sort of the sort of microbiome bugs in your gut or skin or lung, I think is incredibly important, and what an opportunity for Calgary to lead in that area.
So there are a number of questions that have arisen around the Tom Baker Centre and also the amazing role that the new Calgary Cancer Centre can play. And one question is, will all the activity at the current Tom Baker Centre move to the new facility?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we operate currently on two sites, the old Holy Cross Hospital site as well as the Tom Baker, and all of that activity will move into the new cancer center. Some of it, will be staged over 3 or 4 months because of the magnitude of the move, but everything will eventually move over.
Great. So one of the comments from the audience members is really great presentations, but are asking, how can we as individuals and patients and families with lived experience best add our value for the benefits of us all as we move toward the new cancer center? I'll turn it over to the team.
Well, I guess I could say that, historically when I trained in medicine, it was really a bit paternalistic, if you will. Now the role of the patient, the role of the family, the role of the caregiver is increasingly important and in fact central. And we can't do it without you. And that means opportunities to participate in clinical trials or research activities. As Dr. Chan has said, sharing biospecimens and data is going to be increasingly important. We're all part of the solution, if you will. And the other part of it is get engaged. We have learned so much with regard to our patient and family advisory groups. Get involved. And the latest thing that's coming through is patient-reported outcomes. Mm-hmm. And so these are things that we can do in real time, communicate in a two-way fashion, but learn as we go as opposed to waiting for the next CT scan or the next visit. So these are all things, and there's probably there are countless other opportunities. So great question.
Great. Thank you.
I guess we can always look on the website too for trials and studies that are seeking involvement from patients and families. That's a good source.
So another question relates to the great work that's going to be coming out of the Tom Baker Centre already at the University of Calgary, but also at the new Calgary Cancer Centre. How are you going to share the results with other hospitals across the country or around the world? Would like to take that?
Yeah, so I could actually go on and on about this, but I'll keep it brief. So, I said that, we want to be networked, right? We want to be networked internally, but we want to also be networked externally. One thing that I didn't mention is an opportunity is a presently being created national network of cancer centers, and we're actually in the process of joining that network, and we are going to have an agreement to share all of our data, to share our samples, because we know that even for one cancer center, it's hard to have enough patients, enough data. When you're talking about AI and machine learning, I'm going to get myself in trouble for saying this, but size does matter. Okay, so you want big data to make these conclusions. And I think by sharing across the country, you're really opening yourself up to making bigger discoveries. So that's nationally, but certainly internationally as well. This network would seek to deposit its data also in international repositories, like for the ICGC, for example, for genomic data, International Genome Consortium.
Great, thank you. One question that came in that I think is really important that we ask, and if you could just take 10 to 15 seconds, each of you, to say what drew you into this career of trying to improve lives and reduce the impacts of cancer. Just quickly.
Do we go?
Each one of you.
Well, I'll start. So I trained as an immunologist way back when, and so that's always been a passion, although I've been hiding with that moniker for a number of years until about 10 or 15 years ago, when it's been very helpful. But I've run a lab all the way through, and so the clinical balance between research activities and findings and being able to put it into clinical trials and into our patient population really has been the driver of both the science part of me and the clinical side of me.
Jen?
So, I never really knew that I was going to, I thought I was going to go into medicine, but, the moment I was looking at cells and wondering, why is this one bad and this one is not so bad? It's like a puzzle, and you feel like you want to solve it. You want to do something, learn something. And I just, every other moment, I was going back into the lab saying, how can we look at this? So on the one hand, it is a curiosity, but on the other hand, it's because you think that knowledge can make things better.
Yeah.
It touches all of our lives, it touches our families, and it's the leading cause of death in Canada. So I thought, as someone who likes data and trends, if I can make an impact with my passion, that this would be time well spent.
Doug?
For me, I get to do intellectually and technically challenging work every day, and work that could make a difference in other people's lives. So that makes me feel really good.
Can I say one more thing? There is so much technology that we've talked about, the merging of computer science and biology, for example. I mean, this is how discovery is going to push forward. And, I look at young people today, and they're so technologically savvy. It would be amazing, if we could get a fraction of those guys to focus on something like this, something that's, meaningful for humanity. If we can direct that energy and that knowledge, I mean, think about the progress we could make. So, if you're a young person out there listening to this, hopefully you're inspired, or have a child or a grandchild even. But I see the hope for the future in this, in sort of all these approaches.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for those inspirational observations. I'd like to thank all the panelists and the audience for the really sort of exciting and amazing discussion that we've had. It's wonderful to see the level of impact that we're creating together in cancer research and care. And it's incredibly exciting to look forward to advancing this impact even further with the new Calgary Cancer Centre. So to share some further details on the campaign underway, let's meet the campaign co-chairs.
Hello, I'm Heather Colbert and have the privilege of introducing myself as one of the 3 co-chairs of something very exciting you'll be hearing more about soon, an incredible $250 million campaign for the Calgary Cancer Centre. Most of you will have likely seen the beautiful building taking shape near the Foothills Hospital. Inside those walls and very nearby at the university lies a game-changing opportunity for the city, this province, and this country. Calgary is already a recognized hub for cancer research, treatment, and care. That's nothing compared to what we're poised to become by building the largest comprehensive cancer center in Canada. Excellent and compassionate treatment, all under one roof. We are so excited about the bright minds working together toward one common goal. I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair, John Osler, who will tell you a bit more. But before, I want to leave you with a quote by Brené Brown. When we own our own stories, we get to write a brave new ending. We hope you will start thinking about what part of this Calgary story that you will own. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. I'm John Osler, and I'm so honored to be a co-chair of this campaign with Heather and Deborah Yedlin. This cancer center's been such a long time coming, and when it opens its doors in 2023, I'll be one of the thousands of Albertans jumping for joy. I've had a cancer diagnosis in this city, and I'm a survivor because of integrated research, treatment care, and having the best available minds working together. And that's what's going to happen at this new cancer center. It's going to save lives. We're so excited to share this campaign over the next few months. It's a campaign that will speak to the Alberta spirit, to our new Calgary, and show once again that our grit, determination, and enthusiasm can get things done here no matter what. And it's our turn. The University of Calgary, the Alberta Cancer Foundation, and Alberta Health Services have a proven track record of working together to move mountains. And we're so committed to making the lives of all Albertans facing cancer and their families better. But we can't do it alone. So in the next few months, we're going to ask Albertans to join us in a $250 million Calgary Cancer Centre campaign. More details will follow soon, and now I am privileged to turn things over to Deborah.
Hello, I'm Deborah Yedlin, Chancellor of the University of Calgary. More than anywhere else, Alberta is uniquely positioned to make massive strides in cancer treatment and prevention. Here at the University of Calgary, we're already accelerating life science innovation through the Cummings School of Medicine. We've amassed world-leading experts designing new cancer diagnostic tools, developing new treatment protocols, and discovering new prevention methods. Our Arnie Charbonneau Cancer Institute is a unique partnership with Alberta Health Services, where researchers and clinicians come together to improve patient care and treatment. When matched with Canada's largest, most comprehensive standalone cancer centre, there will be no stopping us. As you've heard, this campaign is made up of a unique partnership between the Alberta Cancer Foundation, the University of Calgary, and Alberta Health Services. Together, we must do great things because cancer touches all of us. It's time to take back the power cancer has over us, and we will need your support. This is our moment, our once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform the landscape of cancer research, care, and treatment. It's up to us to do what feels impossible. We can't wait to share more. Until then, have a great day, and thank you for your time at Idea Exchange.
We're building a better future for cancer care, and it's because of a shared commitment to working together. I want to leave you with one more call to action, and that's to continue being a part of this journey to a future of improved cancer outcomes. Help us change the lives of Calgarians and Albertans when the Calgary Cancer Centre campaign launches this fall. I know we can make an extraordinary difference together. Turning back to our idea exchange, let's continue the discussion. We're going to move our program now into the breakout room sessions. And there are 4 sessions, and you'll have the opportunity to attend 2 sessions over the next 30 minutes. You'll find the topics and the links to these sessions in the chat pane. Before we go into the breakout rooms, I'll close with one last note of thanks. Thanks to our panelists, and thanks to you, our audience, for the great discussion. Please stay safe, stay well, and stay connected. Thank you, and good evening.